Hello, my name is Irina Baturevich and I'm the head of analytical department of the Ukrainian Book Institute. Ukrainian Book Institute was established in 2016 as a government agency affiliated to the Ministry of Culture and Informational Policy of Ukraine, with the purpose of providing recommendations on government policy in the publishing industry, encouraging publishing, promoting reading in Ukraine, and Ukrainian literature abroad. I will start from the latest news. This year Ukraine is facing the global COVID-19 crisis as well as many other countries. In joint efforts with other cultural institutions, we have been proving the necessity of culture and publishing industry in particular during the budget sequestration to get the government support. But by the end of the year, 4 and 5 million euros will be given for the publishers as grants of institutional support. What is more, after the government reshuffle in the beginning of March, the new Minister of Culture and Information Policy, Alexander Tkachenko, was appointed. What is more about government support? In the last 5 years, it had been strengthened for culture and cultural diplomacy by creating in 2016-17 the new institutions, and Ukrainian Book Institute, Ukrainian Cultural Foundation and Ukrainian Institute are among them. Just a few facts about Ukraine. After the revolution in 2014, Ukraine adopted a pro-Western, pro-European policy. The country has signed a free trade agreement with the European Union. And before the COVID-19, we did travel visa-free into 67 countries, including the Schengen area. In this presentation, I will introduce the market dynamics over the last years and current state of publishing industry, as well as insights of the impact of pandemic. In 2019, publishing industry brought up to 100 million euros in revenue by experts' opinion. You can see here near more than 1,000 publishers who were active in publishing market, and 300 of them who are producing a few books from year to year. Also, they producing only, like, the whole publishing industry can produce only half of the book per capita. Ukrainian publishing industry has been growing over the past years and had been recovered since 2014 after the annexation of Crimea and the war in the east of Ukraine. Since that time, Crimean publishing as well as publishing of eastern regions doesn't count into the volume of the market. Following the global trend, the number of new book titles showed stable growth. The positive dynamics of print runs allowed to reach the results of the publishing industry before the 2015 crisis, after the war with Russia and and annexation of Crimea. In trade publishing, the largest number of titles and the largest print runs showed in fiction. It's 6 and 3 million copies. 2019 was marked by a record number of books published in the Ukrainian language. It is more than 19,000 titles, and also outstanding number of copies which were printed. So the print run was more than 52.5 million copies. Total print runs for 2019 are 61 million copies. Books published in Russian were significantly less numerous at only 3,500 of titles. In 2005, over almost 4,000 titles were published in Russian. The largest number of books were published in Russian were published in 2013. It's almost 7,000 titles and has dropped since that time. The share of trade publishing in 2019 amounted to 22 and a bit more percent, while textbooks and educational literature amounted to 50 million copies. This is a high number, since in the past the total print runs of educational literature have never exceeded 63%. The situation is quite different when it comes to overall print runs. The total numbers in 2019 is that it took the second place after 2013. Traditionally, Kiev and Kharkiv region compete for leadership in book publishing. They are followed by Ternopil and Lviv regions, which lag behind by a wide margin. We can see here the leaders of the market, and we can see the highest number of published titles, and the market leaders remains roughly unchanged since 2018. If we are talking about the highest print runs, it belongs to Ranek Publishing House, Family Leisure Club, Vivat Publishing, KM Books Publishing Group, and Folio Publishers. The Old Lion Publishing House is very close to the top 5, as you can see. According to the Book Chamber data, by the end of September 2020, Ukrainian publishers have published only 8 million copies, which equals only 27% of last year's figures. The threefold decrease in book publishing, however, didn't affect the demand for reading books, which remains the same. And we suppose it's quite a good trend, quite a good sign. Due to the report of the Ukrainian Publishers Association, the first half of the 2020 showed that small publishers reduced the number of titles by almost by 50%, and the print run lost 56% of copies, comparing to the same period of the previous year. Medium and large publishing houses suffered losses of 63% by name and 48% by circulation, respectively. Total income for all types from all types of books, book sales were almost 50% lower than in the first half of 2019. The expected growth in the online sales doesn't change the situation significantly. The general income increased from 20 to 33%, and we have the other problem, which is the labor market problem. So 21% of publishing workers were left without job. The main and probably main positive trend, as you can see, is that people are not reading less and not buying cheaper books. Also, you can see that the number of spontaneous purchases decreased, which showed that people are thinking more and more precisely what books should they buy. Also, we can say a few words about bestsellers. In 2019, we expected a bestseller to be more than 20,000 copies sold. In the previous year, only one book had a total print run near 50,000 copies. The average print run now starts from 1,000 copies, while for the previous year publishers produced 3,000 copies on average. The biggest printing houses reported the same trend. The average print run for one title reduced to 500 or up to 1,000 copies. The pricing. You can see on this expert opinion infographics. Non-fiction books are the most expensive segment, and children books, you can see here €2 per one book, but actually the range of pricing here is the most wide here. You can find the children books started from 50 cents per one book up to almost €25 or even more. We have no fixed price in Ukraine, and we also have we can say a few words about the readership. According to the results of the nationwide survey conducted by the Ukrainian Book Institute in 2020, the share of book readers and the average number of books read stayed stable since 2018, with a slight growth in the segment of people who read from 1 to 5 books per year. People who read more had become over the last years. One moment. So let's talk a bit about the language. According to the Razumkov Center, in 2017, 68% of Ukrainians consider the official language to be their mother tongue. 14% say Russian is their mother tongue, and 17% are sure that both languages are their mother tongues. However, judging from the volume of imports in a few previous years, the Ukrainian audience is quite accustomed to the Russian language. Most often, readers are tolerant to the language of the publication if they can understand it. 41% choose the original language in which the book was written, or assume the language of the book doesn't matter. But this year's survey showed the number of people who prefer reading books in Ukrainian increased. 32% people prefer actually reading books in Ukrainian. And now the number of people who prefer books in Russian is 27%, which is quite the same comparing to the previous year. It's the first time that survey showed that Russian language is not the first preferred language for the book readers. The language preferences of book buyers differ depending on their socio-demographic characteristics, of course, and younger respondents are more likely to prefer books in Ukrainian. Now let's talk about selling rights, which could be also interesting. First of all, I want to present you the most recognizable writers, which are the most popular among Ukrainian readers. They are Lina Kostenko, Serhiy Zhadan, Oksana Zabushko, Yuri Andrukhovich, and Lykola Shvar. Here is the data of 2018. But the survey of this year showed that it's quite the same, but with a little changes. We can see here Vasil Shklyar, and almost one third of Ukrainians named that they know at least one modern author which writes in Ukrainian or considered to be Ukrainian author. Here you can see the data about the most recognizable, the most famous publishers, which are Rana Publishing House, Ababa Halamaha, and Family Leisure Club. It's obvious because they are actually one of the market leaders, and their books could be found everywhere. So the programs of Ukrainian Book Institute aims to support publishing sector, and Translate Ukraine program is one of the last programs we had launched. My colleague Andriana Nebozhuk had presented her program, which about supporting foreign publishers to produce more books translated from Ukrainian language. And you can find more details in her presentation. And I just say that every foreign publisher who is interested in Ukrainian literature can find the opportunity from Ukrainian Book Institute to support some of their translations, up to 4,000 euros. You can use books from Ukraine catalog, which will be published soon in Ukrainian Book Institute site. Here you can find some pieces of the new books from Ukraine, fiction books mostly, and even poetry. So we invite you to visit Ukrainian Book Institute site and find these catalogs. About the market leaders in terms of selling rights. Here you can see three fragments, three the most popular publishing houses which are very active abroad and whose books are selling to foreign publishers very well. The first one is Old Lion Publishing House, as you can see, with the most numbers translated from Ukrainian to other languages. The main reasons to buy rights listed here is the result of a survey of 102 Ukrainian major publishers, and you can see here that of course the topic is the main reason, but best-selling status is also important. Talking about ebooks and audiobooks. We expected the growth in this segment after COVID, but after the growth in the first month of quarantine, the number of people who are reading books, ebooks and listening to audiobooks remained almost the same. Comparing to the year of 2018, it showed slight growth, and actually the trend is quite positive. We can see here an interesting data from, I think, the only one company which specialized on audiobooks production. It's a book project, and you can see here the number of the listeners and the number of visitors of their site, and actually the books. You can see here that the trend is really positive, but pandemic didn't show the result we supposed we will see. So here is the numbers of people who read ebooks and listen to audiobooks. It's according to the nationwide survey. And here is my contact. My name is Irina Baturevich. You can get in touch with us really easily. And in 2021 we are going to launch many new programs which aims to support the translations in particular, and the translations from Ukrainian and into Ukrainian. For instance, we are going to launch the project of translation of 1,000 best books of intellectual heritage into Ukrainian. And despite of the current circumstances, Ukrainian Book Institute is looking for collaboration and encouraging the creation of books as a long-term content which will remain after the COVID-19 will be defeated. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for your interest. I hope this presentation will be useful.